actual in-use cases.
Well, everyone's betting on AI getting smarter.
The amazing thing is they can reason.
We're just at the beginning of the reasoning AI era.
Smarter models, sharper intuition, super intelligence.
I think we'll get super intelligence, and I would guess that it will be a continuation of this trend that humanity has been on for 100+ years.
Fueling explosive new demand for compute.
The amount of computation necessary to do that reasoning process is 100 times more than what we used to do.
And companies going all in, spending billions just to avoid falling behind.
We now spend about $2 billion on AI. We have something like 600 actual in-use cases. That number probably double next year, maybe triple.
But what if it's all been overpromised and we're heading straight into a bottomless money pit? New research is casting doubt on the hype. In a new paper, they're going to tread water on the growing trend of reasoning models and whether they're really more accurate. Is the AI actually getting smarter, or is it just an illusion? I'm Deirdre Bosa with the Tech Check Take, AI's reasoning blind spot. AI reasoning, it's the new frontier, the next supposedly towards superintelligence. Forget chatbots that just answer questions in black box. These models, they think, they show their work, they break problems into steps, and that's a shift from predicting words to planning actions.
The reason it's hard for GPT-4o is it has to get it correct on the first try. It can't check that it meets the constraints and then revise something. Now let's try the same poem with O1, and we'll see that differing from GPT-4o, O1 preview starts thinking before giving the final answer.
The idea is that the more it thinks, the smarter it gets, just like a human.
We know that thinking is oftentimes more than just one shot. And thinking requires us to maybe do multi-plans, multiple potential answers that we choose the best one from. Just like when we're thinking, we might reflect on the answer before we deliver the answer. Reflection. We might take a problem and break it down into step by step by step. Chain of thought.
OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, DeepSeek, they all jump on this trend. Model after model, drop after drop. O1, O1 Pro, O3, O3 Mini, Sonnet 4, Opus 4, R1, Gemini 2.0 Flash, each claiming exceptional reasoning capabilities, each promising to be the most powerful yet. Except a string of research papers is calling that promise into question. The highest profile from a team at Apple, bluntly titled The Illusion of Thinking, it concludes that once problems get hard enough, reasoning models, they stop working. Let's break it down with the logic puzzle, as Apple does. The towers of Hanoi, 3 rods, stacked discs. The goal is to move all the discs to another rod, big on bottom, small on top, in the fewest possible moves. It's something you might give a talk to build cognitive skills, but it's also a stress test for reasoning. In the simplest version of the game, just 3 discs, Anthropic's model performed the same with or without reasoning. Add a few more discs, reasoning outperforms, but then comes the twist. After 7 discs, performance collapses to 0 accuracy. And not just for Anthropic's model, but for DeepSeek's and OpenAI's as well. The harder the task was supposed to get, the worse the models perform. Same thing happened with other puzzles. Checkers, river crossing problems, these are basic logic games. So what's the real takeaway here? Well, these models, they look like they're thinking, but what they actually may be doing is pattern matching. When the puzzle is familiar, when it's something that they've seen in training, they do fine. But throw them something new, complex, untested, they fail. What looks like intelligence might just be memorization at scale.
There's a lot of debate, at least in terms of how quickly things will be reached and how fast they're actually progressing when it comes certainly to the reasoning side.
It's not just Apple either. Salesforce calls it jagged intelligence and finds that there's a significant gap between current LLM capabilities and real-world enterprise demand. Anthropic, the maker of one of the most advanced reasoning models, raised red flags in a recent paper of its own titled Reasoning Models Don't Always Say What They Think. And the Chinese research lab leak, well, it found that today's AI training methods haven't been able to elicit genuinely novel reasoning.
We can make it do really well on benchmarks. We can make it do really well on specific tasks. And that's valuable. Like, we have a lot of agents who want to do specific tasks. I think the thing that's not well understood, and that some of those papers you allude to show, is that it doesn't generalize. So yeah, while it might be really good at this task, it's awful at very common sense things that, you and I would do in our sleep. And that's, I think, a fundamental limitation of the reasoning models right now.
In other words, these models aren't just limited, they don't generalize. That means they're just learning how to perform on tests that they've seen, but are unable to face real-world tests.
We know how to build one that's really good at Powers of Hanoi, but then there's a million problems like that, and this is the problem. If it doesn't generalize, you have to train them again and again and again. So I think we're going into an era where we're going to see much more diversity of AI models.
That might work for now, specialized AI built for narrow jobs or built to beat benchmarks, but that is not the goal. The holy grail is superintelligence, a system that can reason, adapt, think beyond what it was trained on, a system that is smarter than us. And on that front,
I think the sort of artificial superintelligence is much farther away than we thought. That's the key takeaway. I think we can still have big impact with AI in, everyday life, but I think that superintelligence, as we were sort of, that the thing that's all, knowing and can do everything, that's many, many more years out. Probably we need major breakthroughs that we don't have yet to get there.
The industry promised superintelligence. What we may have gotten instead are narrow benchmarks and shallow reasoning.
It's time to pick up my mom.
Oh, a new beard.
Didn't you, Sarah, liked the slighted look?
Your floors. They're so beautiful.
I use Boma.
Boma's uniquely formulated plant-based floor cleaners make it easy to impress even the toughest critics.
Advisors know their clients' goals and aspirations better than anyone. Equitable helps advisors plan how to achieve them. We offer strategies designed to adapt to market twists and turns.
So is the industry chasing the wrong kind of intelligence? And what would that mean for investors and the AI trade at large? Because if reasoning models do work, they would in theory need way more compute. And that could extend the infrastructure boom that's driving stocks like NVIDIA. Jensen Huang himself has said that reasoning models will require mountains more compute than previous ones.
The amount of computation we need at this point as a result of agentic AI, as a result of reasoning, is easily 100 times more than we thought we needed this time last year.
But if they don't scale, well, that raises deeper questions about how far today's AI can really go and whether enterprises are pouring billions of dollars into AI just to keep up with no guarantee of payoff. The AI industry is built on a simple idea. Scale works. The bigger the model, the more data it's fed, the smarter it gets. It's what experts call the scaling law.
One of the properties of machine learning, of course, is that the larger the brain, the more data we can teach it, the smarter it becomes. We call it the scaling law. There's every evidence that as we scale up the size of the models, the amount of training data, the effectiveness, the quality, the performance of the intelligence improves.
But when that starts to break, when models stop improving, it shakes the foundation. AI hits a wall. And the last time that happened, around November of 2024, the industry entered a full-blown existential crisis. Debate around progress stalling and China catching up, that hit the public AI trade with NVIDIA falling into correction territory early on in 2025. And everyone weighed in, from OpenAI CEO Sam Altman saying there is no wall to Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei and NVIDIA's Jensen Huang.
People call them scaling laws. That's a misnomer, like Moore's law is a misnomer. Moore's law, scaling laws, they're not laws of the universe. They're empirical regularities. I am going to bet in favor of them continuing, but I'm not certain of that.
This is where almost the entire world got it wrong.
As pre-training progress stalled, reasoning was supposed to be the escape hatch, a new kind of intelligence, harder to measure but full of potential. If it panned out, it would justify the next wave of spending and keep the AI trade alive. Chip makers, hyperscalers, they rebounded on that narrative.
We intend fully to commit ourselves deeply to making sure you all, as builders of these foundation models, have not only the best systems for training and inference, but the most compute so that you can keep pushing.
Our 7th generation TPU Ironwood is the first design powered thinking and inference at scale.
In fact, it is the ultimate extreme computing problem, and it's called inference.
But if that's no longer a given, it could break this renewed momentum and once again make investors question the return on AI spending. Besides the massive investments in reasoning by major players like Google, OpenAI, and Anthropic, corporate America at large has started to bet big on it too. The number of businesses that have begun adopting AI, that has accelerated since the start of this year, hinging on the belief that the technology will truly transform and revolutionize their businesses. Even if, as JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon says, the benefit isn't immediately clear. AI has become table stakes for enterprises, but if the payoff doesn't materialize, that whole premise could be rethought. And that is why Apple's white paper landed like cold water. Some view the red flags as Apple moving the goalposts, shifting the conversation because it's playing catch up.
Apple's putting out papers right now saying that LLMs and reasoning don't really work. And what they said wasn't entirely wrong about the challenges, but having that come out and then having a WWDC like they had and not really addressing the fact that intelligence has been a total flop, it more sounds like, oops, look over here, because we don't know exactly what we're doing while all these other Mag 7 companies are building humanoid robots, are building massive data centers in the future, are building the actual networking and GPUs.
Anthropic ended up releasing a response, another paper titled The Illusion of Thinking, raising issue with some of the technical methods Apple used to run those logic puzzles. But the wave of researchers sounding the alarm, it's hard to ignore.
I think what Apple was doing is basically starting to set the narrative that there still is a long way to go for models to be intelligent.
And that could be the biggest curveball from all of this, pushing back the timeline to artificial general intelligence, or AGI. It's a dream being expensively pursued by Sam Altman, SoftBank's Masayoshi Son, and Mark Zuckerberg. It has huge implications for what was once the AI partnership, widely seen as the most strategic and well-aligned in the industry, OpenAI and Microsoft. Once OpenAI declares AGI, according to their agreement that was inked 6 years ago, the partnership ends, which means the definition of intelligence and who gets to call it could determine who controls the future of AI. Reasoning was supposed to be AI's next great leap. Instead, it may just be the step that reminds us how far we still have to go.
Your life is fueled by American energy and by the Americans who make it all happen. Energy demand.
With the vision of a city that every New Yorker could afford, we have won.
Tonight was not our night. Tonight was Assemblyman Mamdani's night, and he put together a great campaign, and he touched young people and inspired them and moved them.
Welcome back. That was Zohran Mamdani declaring victory and Andrew Cuomo conceding defeat after Tuesday's stunning result in New York City's Democratic mayoral primary. Mamdani, a 33-year-old Democratic socialist, centered his campaign on progressive policies like universal child care and free city buses. His largely grassroots campaign was powered by small dollar donations and a savvy social media presence that included viral videos featuring progressive politicians and pop culture celebrities. Cuomo, meanwhile, ran a more traditional campaign backed by big-name endorsements like former President Bill Clinton and a heavy rotation of TV ads, but controversy and scandal from his time as governor hung large over his candidacy. The result has Democrats around the country wondering what Mamdani's victory really says about the state and the future of the Democratic Party. Here to dive into the numbers behind Mamdani's historic night is NBC News national political correspondent Steve Kornacki, who is, where else, at the big board. So, Steve, how did he pull off this earthquake?
Yeah, Chris, I mean, some really interesting numbers here when you take a look inside New York City. First of all, see the overall results here so far. Still some votes to be tabulated here. This won't be official for another week, but as you say, Cuomo's already conceded because, look, Cuomo felt he needed to be ahead after this initial account. They've got that ranked choice system in New York. It was pretty clear that a lot of these other candidates who weren't really in contention when their votes got reallocated in ranked choice, a lot of them had been saying to their voters, if you don't vote for me, vote for Mamdani. So the question was, could Cuomo get far enough ahead last night to withstand that? He didn't even get ahead last night, so that's why this kind of became a foregone conclusion here. We'll break this down now into some of the neighborhoods, though, because I think that's where you really start to see this. Age. You heard Cuomo cite that young voters he said Mamdani had brought out done well with. Here's a tale of two neighborhoods in New York City. This right here, Bay Terrace in Queens. This is the highest median age of any neighborhood in New York City. And look what happened here. The oldest voters, that was Cuomo's base here in this primary. He won by a better than 2-1 margin over Mamdani. Take a look now. Morningside Heights. This is up by Columbia University. This is the youngest median age of any neighborhood in New York City. And look what happened here. Mamdani won it. He won it overwhelmingly. Better than 2-1 against Cuomo. In fact, Cuomo came in third place in this neighborhood. So that's a pattern you saw. The younger areas were big areas for Mamdani. Also, this is a big divide we talk about in American politics, and it's big in the Democratic Party. The education divide. Mamdani doing so much better with voters who had college degrees, or look at this one, advanced degrees. That is a graduate degree or more. Almost half of the people, the adults in Park Slope, Brooklyn, have at least a graduate degree. And look at this. Mamdani got almost half the vote there. Cuomo barely registered, only 13%. A third candidate here, Brad Lander, got 34%. Other end of the education spectrum, more blue-collar, working class, no college degree. Almost 90% of the folks in Fordham Heights have no college degree. Look at this. Cuomo, again, a landslide for Cuomo there, nearly 60% of the vote, the education divide. And then, of course, we look among non-white voters here. I thought this is interesting because key core traditional part of the Democratic Party base has been black voters. This neighborhood in Queens, 84% of the adult population is black, and Mario Cuomo, listen to me, Andrew Cuomo wins overwhelmingly against Mamdani, but Cuomo did not run up similar numbers among Latino voters and Asian American voters. Taking a look here in Corona, Queens, highest Latino population, a share of the population. Look at this. It was almost a tie here. Cuomo narrowly winning. Cuomo's folks had been hoping, his campaign had been banking on something much bigger than that here. Asian American, highest concentration, Flushing, Queens, basically a tie right there as well. So that is those two groups, the Latinos, Asian Americans, early in the campaign, the Cuomo people thought that was something of a firewall. That didn't hold up for them last night, and that was a very big key in Mamdani's victory.
Looking at a potential political realignment yet again, this time in the Democratic Party and the Democratic coalition. Steve Kornacki, thank you so much for those fascinating numbers and breakdown of the race.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app.
Two candidates who want to be the next mayor of New York. Please welcome New York State Assemblyman Zohran Mamdani and New York City Comptroller Brad Lander. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me here. Each of you are running to be mayor of New York. And to be clear, I am not endorsing either one of you.
I'm out of
here.
Okay?
In fact, so much so that you guys are going to switch seats a little bit later in this interview.
Right.
But you're endorsing each other. How does that work? Why is this, for each of you, question, why is this your number two guy?
Well, we both agree, for starters, that corrupt, abusive Andrew Cuomo should not be allowed anywhere near City Hall. And we know that by teaming up, a majority of New Yorkers won't choose him. At the same time, we have a positive vision. You know, when I first met Zohran, he was leading an effort to help taxi drivers who were under crushing debt, like several had committed suicide because medallion holders were crushing them with excess debt. So he led a hunger strike, teamed up with people, and designed a $450 million debt relief program. And has now built on that with a vision for a city that all New Yorkers can afford, whoever they are, and I find it inspiring, and so I hope folks will rank me #1 on their ballot and rank Zoran #2. Mr. Mamdani.
And I think, Brad has been a principled and progressive leader in this city for years. So many of the laws that we celebrate in this city are ones that he actually brought to bear. And I'm talking about someone who founded the Progressive Caucus in the city council. And it's exciting to know that while each of us think that we will make the next best mayor of New York City, we also understand that it's time for a politics of the future. And that means a politics of collaboration, a politics of sincerity, a politics of principle. And
well, this race in general, Governor Cuomo being in the race, you guys and the other candidates, this has made national news. You both have been interviewed on the national news networks. Your opponent, Andrew Cuomo, has been recently endorsed by Representative Jim Clyburn of South Carolina, the guy who, basically clinched it for Biden in 2020. Why do you think this particular race has become a countrywide story?
I think in some ways because it's a referendum on where our party goes. What we're talking about is a race that has now seen the most funded super PAC in New York City's municipal history. A race that is, one that billionaires and corporations want to buy. And this is a tale that we're seeing across this country, where it's a battle of organized money versus organized people. And ultimately, it's a question for our own party of how do we move forward? Do we move forward with the same politicians of the past, the same policies of the past that delivered us this present? Or do we move forward with a new generation of leadership, one that is actually looking to serve the people?
Despite this being a New York City race, foreign affairs have become part of it, partly because this is such a multicultural city. And so I'll ask the same question to both of you. I'll start with you, Mr. Lander. Does the state of Israel have the right to exist?
I support the vision of Israel as a Jewish and democratic state.
Mr. Mamdani, same question. Does the state of Israel have the right to exist?
Yes, like all nations, I believe it has a right to exist and a responsibility also to uphold international law.
Okay, well, let's talk about the elephant in the room, is that there are many people in New York, even people who would support your candidacy otherwise, who don't want to support you because of the rising anti-Semitism, not only around the world, but in this country and shamefully in New York, which is the largest Jewish population of any city other than Tel Aviv in the whole world. And they are worried, they're very upset by some of the things that you've said in the past, and they are afraid that your mayorship would actually lead to increased anti-Semitism, that they believe that would be more dangerous for them. Well, what do you say to those New Yorkers